What is going on, everybody? We are back once again with another edition of Wrestling Republic's daily broadcast. It is Friday, January the 17th. Happy late birthday to my dad. That was yesterday. And also happy late birthday to my grandpa, Bob. That was his birthday yesterday, too. Neither here nor there. Let's get right into this show today, though. We've got a lot on tap this weekend, a ton of GCW, a ton of TNA, as well as an episode of SmackDown. We got all kinds of things to break down. I have a wicked crew hanging out with me, first and foremost, waging a courageous battle against Stitches out in Scotland. Our host of the Soul Sessions is back once again. Talk about one of the hardest workers in show business here. This guy is recovering from surgery, and he's out here to talk to y'all about wrestling. How are you, Soul?
Happening, son. Actually in the studio now, so improvement has gone on upon for my recovery. Actually able to actually get the door open and climb up the stairs to in here, which is nice. It's been a while since I've been in here. There's still a lot of mess everywhere, but I'm okay now. A lot better, less painkillers I'm taking. But rocking the subculture shirt for this one for the boys. So let's get on to a bunch of topics here today. Some good, some interesting, and some very, very long.
Yes, sir. I'm with you, and I am stoked for you, and I love the shirt. And not to spoil our other guests, but I will say you still got the sticker on it, top right. You got it.
Keep the sticker on. It's part of the value.
You don't want the sticker on it. You don't want the sticker on it. Either way, so it's good to have you back, and I'm glad you're feeling better, of course. And if you saw him already, you know he's here. He might cash in that Money in the Bank any day now, but it's Jordy in the Bank. What's going on?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Yeah, it's up there. It's hanging. You can't really see it at the minute. But I've been holding on to that briefcase for a while, and Saul has got a few belts in the background there. I could see. And listen, I'm not that guy, but he is injured, so it would be a prime opportunity for me to cash in. He's probably not that far away in comparison to yourself, Clark. But I won't do that. I won't do that. And yeah, it's great to see you back, Saul, back in the studio. There's a lot to talk about for wrestling fans, and it's gonna be a fun show.
Wow,
no doubt about it.
When I'm injured, Jordy, I mean, hey, take the Ring of Honor World Championship. That replica sucks.
I didn't say I was gonna do it. I just wanted you to know that I can.
It was a
possibility. You know what I mean?
Just wanted to keep that in the back of your mind. I do feel safe. Now's not a great time to
leave my AW belts, right? Leave my AW belts. They're mine.
Is that a spinner I see in the background there?
Yeah, it's a spinner that your big boy John Cena you love, and you don't have one. John would be upset with you, man. He would cry. He would cry.
I do have one, actually. It's down there. Can you see it?
It looks like a toy.
No, but I do believe you. Oh, yeah. You got one.
Yeah, no, it's a toy. You're absolutely right. It's a toy.
I've got, rest in peace, a Cedric Benson action figure behind me, by the way, while we're talking about backgrounds, but just neither here nor there. Great running back for the Bears back in the day. Let's get into the show, though, guys. Don't you think? While we're up.
Yeah.
We've got some dream matches coming up. This is always a fun thing to do. I love just spitballing and coming up with fun stuff. Dream matches, WWE versus TNA. There's so many possibilities. And it's also one of those things that if you really think back and you look back like 15 years ago, isn't an option. It very much is now and has been. Of late, given the crossover with TNA and NXT, got to give AEW some credit for this. The forbidden door is open, man. You never know. Business is being done here. This is very ECW showing up on WWE-esque. And I like that. I'm going to start out of the gates with my one and only pick so far. I might come up with another depending on how this goes here, guys. But I'm going to go with basically the present face of TNA, Josh Alexander, taking on the past, the guy that absolutely built the foundation that TNA stands upon today, AJ Styles. I think that's just an outstanding matchup. I think bell to bell, you can put on something that's absolutely incredible and special. I would love to see it. There are so many, though, and it's funny because you're seeing a lot of TNA talent in WWE right now already. Motor City Machine Guns, known as TNA guys. Do we need to send them back? Probably not. So they're not really in this equation, but there's a lot of names out there that have never really crossed paths with the TNA roster. And that's something that I'm excited about to hear from you guys. I'm going to start with you, Jordy. What are your picks as far as dream matches involving TNA and WWE?
I was having a look through the rosters because, it's just good to get a kind of an image, because there's sometimes people you forget and instantly the Hardys jump out at me. There's something, and like it is probably me going into my unk status, like we were talking about in the chat before. I've hit a certain age. There would be something, I think, great about seeing the Hardys as a tag team in WWE, which will most likely be for the last time. I think we all kind of understand that now. Jeff obviously had a interview this week, I think, come out with Chris Van Vliet, and he spoke quite a lot about how I think he feels like there's unfinished business there, and that obviously it didn't end very well last time, and he just wants to maybe right some wrongs there. I'd love to see it. So the Hardys against anyone is up there, but another one that I'm just going to throw in the mix, and you guys in the comments can pick, you two can pick if you want, but give us a big elimination tag match. I want an old school Survivor Series, like 5-on-5 tag match with eliminations, that kind of mad spree where like 5 people get eliminated. You're just seeing a load of finishers getting thrown around. Really showcase the talent that both of the rosters have to offer, and I think that might be a good, fun opportunity to do that. And maybe somewhere down the line, they might have like a champions versus champions night. I don't know, but I always worry about that because I just feel like WWE will not want to have their NXT talent lose to TNA, and it's quite difficult to book.
I hear you on that. That's the hardest part about this. And I do like the idea on the Hardys. And especially given where the Hardys are at right now, we got to be getting down to the nitty gritty, because there's been whispers about it for so long. It's like, let's do it while we can.
Yeah.
And I think that makes a lot of sense. I'm with you there. We've got some comments here I want to run through for sure. I love this one from DCX Warlord, Javon Evans, Leon Slater. Yeah, where do I sign? Yeah, absolutely. I'm in. Happy Friday, Wrestling Republic from Superfly. Absolutely happy Friday, my friend. And then I love this. Happy Aloha Friday. Mahalo, Sean. Absolutely. We might have to start changing the name of the show to that one. I'm in. It's all those vibes, but let's stick with these dream matches. Soul, you've got as many opinions as about anybody in this game. So I'm super curious to hear what you've got when it comes to TNA versus WWE dream matches. Is there anything that you see that looks like it's just right inside your wheelhouse?
I mainly want to focus on obviously NXT, because that's where the partnership has really been solidified with. So for me, I'm just going to ramble off some of the matches, and if we hear oohs and ahs from Jordy or Clark, then they're good ideas. First one is Oba Femi versus Alex Hammerstone. I think that could be an absolute fun matchup between two behemoths of gentlemen. Number one is Cora Jade and Roxanne Perez versus Spitfire for the TNA Knockouts Tag Team Championships. Be a good way to build up those belts, because the division there is very, 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 very thin. Alan Angels versus Trick Williams. I think that could be a very fun matchup between those two gentlemen. As well, Tessa Blanchard versus Stephanie Vaquer. Two women have history with CMLL. Could be a nice little thing to bring up if they like to or not. But yeah, two women who were brought up and really built up again in the Mexican scene, and then made their way to two opposite ends of the American wrestling promotion. So that's a story there as well. There are a lot of great teams in NXT especially, but I think TNA, when you look at the roster like we were looking at, it is very thin, and hopefully there is a bit of a building upon this, and it can be more and better. I really hope that. But yeah, some of the matchups I would like to see.
Ooh,
Yeah.
I do dig it, honestly. I mean, and I understand where you're coming from when it comes to the NXT partnership, especially. There's so many great matchups there. You mentioned especially in the women's division. The TNA Knockouts division has been kind of a staple of women's wrestling when it comes to the scene for a decade now, I would say. Decade plus. More than that. I got to give credit where it's due. But right this second, it isn't where it was at one stage. Jordan Grace is off the charts. She's outstanding. Don't get me wrong. There are names over.
None of us have mentioned Joe Hendry, which is a bit strange.
So that's where I was going to go.
What about Ridge Holland? I wouldn't say this is a dream match by any recollection. However, a likely feud that they might actually both do quite well in, because Ridge is quite heavily disliked. He would, and Joe is quite heavily liked, just to really pump more heel into that and more face into that. English and Scottish, like myself and you, Sol. Now, me and you are good friends. Not always the case with English and Scottish people. So you've got something to go on straight away.
Something I'll throw to you guys as well. Obviously, in TNA, there's a lot of ex-WWE people. Obviously, Nick Nemeth, Ash by Elegance. If they do these crossover shows, what are they going to call them? Will they be like, oh, it's Dolph Ziggler somehow, or Dana Brooke somehow, or will they address what their accolades are in previous place of employment?
Please, I don't care what they do, as long as it's not what Pete Dunne is doing right now. If any of them come in and get called by the old name and then storm off saying, don't call me that, please, none of that. I don't care what they do. Pick one. Just don't make a storyline about don't call me Dolph, because I can't do that.
I think the coolest way you could do it with Nemeth in particular, and I just wanted to say this when it comes to the Rumble, because I think he should be in the Rumble as the TNA champion, though. I think you play the Dolph intro and then go into Nick Nemeth and bring him out as Nick Nemeth. Let's not pull the wool over our eyes. We saw Mickie James come out to Hardcore Country with the TNA belt, and it was really cool. And there's a way you can do this where you play the Dolph. I mean, that beginning of the Dolph song, everyone knows who it is. So you'll get the huge pop, then go into it's Nick Nemeth. Right? Formerly known as Dolph Ziggler. If you have to say it, I don't care. I think
a name banner will come up for people at home. It's only the people in there that you have to worry about.
We always talk about insulting the intelligence of the audience. Like, we're not stupid. We know he was Dolph Ziggler. And now he's Nick Nemeth.
The curtain's been pulled back in that sense.
You're insulting the intelligence of, like, he's now back as Dolph Ziggler, as if he's not Nick Nemeth. Especially if you bring out anybody else from TNA the rest of the night. If you bring out anybody else, it just makes you.
There was a different way to do it, and it was once done, and it'll never be able to happen again because of non-competes. But the way that they did the whole Kevin Nash Diesel thing, and it was like they just didn't give them a name. You all know who it is. We're not giving them a name right now because you all know exactly who it is. And we don't need to label them anything until they actually had to. So I never get that.
I doubt in all that time that Nemeth has been away from the company that people have forgotten him. For somebody who was there for 10 years. Like, if they have forgot them, then Jesus Christ, have wrestling fans got a real short-term memory.
He's a meme as well. He's a meme.
Also, not to be this guy, but how hard is it to throw in just a little... You know what you could do is play the intro of Dolph's song with Nick Nemeth graphics.
Yeah.
You can explain it on the Jumbotron.
Probably get a bigger pop that way, if that's what they're after. Like, you probably will get a bigger pop if you play Dolph's music, but
I mean, even then, it's goofy to me. It's goofy to me that we're worried about, like, it's got to be the WWE name, and it's funny, like, we've seen what happened with Edge and Cope recently, and it bothers me because there's some where it's easy and there's some where it's not. But what in the world was John Cena supposed to do going by his real name if he went elsewhere? It's not even a choice.
No.
Right? I mean, the fact that CM Punk walked with CM Punk is a sign.
Just a non-negotiable with CM Punk, I think, always in his contract. I don't think he'll ever has handed it over, like even in the first place to WWE when he signed there. I don't think that he really handed that over, but it's strange, and I get what you mean, because you're looking at it and it's like it becomes a point where it's like, if you can't find a good name, which I don't think Cope is, let's just call him Edge, like, because it's becoming a bit of an obstacle, and it's almost affecting his run in a way, because he can have all the best matches in the world, and then like people call him Cope, and you do kind of chuckle a little bit, and it's like, I love Edge. I love Adam Copeland. I love that guy. Like, he's one of his biggest fans. And listen, I personally can look past it because of how much of a fan of him I am, but I see what people are saying about Cope, and I can't say I don't get it. I understand what they're saying. They have a point. It's not the best name in the world, but it is what it is.
I do love this comment, the Scott Hall effect. I think it's so true.
Yeah.
Scott Hall really did change everything when it came to that, and it's hard to deny. Okay, by the way, I'm not gonna lie. I know everything production wise other than whose topic is this next one? The Queen of the Ring trailer. That's you, Jordy? Sorry. Yeah, did you see the Queen of the Ring trailer and talk to me about that one?
I have watched it. And it was good. Listen, like, obviously I'm a wrestling fan, so I'm going to be somewhat interested in a film about wrestling. It's about Mildred Burke. There's quite a lot of names that you guys in the comments will recognize that are going to be in this film. Let me just ramble a few off. Trinity Fatu, which is obviously Naomi, Tony Storm, Camille, Britt Baker, and most surprisingly, I think Jim Cornette is going to be in this movie. So if you want to see a few of the wrestlers you know in a film, that's another reason to go and watch it. The question that was posed to me by El Jefe Ben Allison was, is wrestling movies becoming a trend in Hollywood? And because obviously we had Iron Claw a long time ago, there was the wrestler with Mickey Rourke, but the thing is with Iron Claw, and this is going to be, as much as I want to talk wrestling, I'm going to talk film industry for a little second, and not even just business. The budget for Iron Claw was 15 million, and it made worldwide 45 million, and that's box office. So you're talking about a good 30 million profit. So if other studios going to look at that, 15 million is not a huge budget at all for a Hollywood movie. Are they going to look at that and be like, easy way to make 30-40 million dollars? Quite possibly. So we could see more. I said to you guys before the show, I think with all the biopics going around right now, how well biopics do, our friend Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson may want to go down that avenue in the future. I don't know when. I do think it might be an issue because he'll want to play himself at every stage in his life. But I think that there may be other kind of, and also not just that, how well the Vince documentary did on Netflix. That's another thing. Now, obviously not the most positive thing. However, very interesting. A lot of people did watch it. It was trending. So if you're going to, I always thought like there was a stage in WWF back in the day when it was that, where you could create a film every year because there was that much drama going on that like imagine the screw job being part of a film and like all these things, like there's that much drama and politics that it's a good film and it really happened. So it's like, will they look at doing that, WWE and Netflix together with this partnership creating movies? I think, we're probably going to see more going forward than we ever have, but don't know if they'll all be good.
You brought up a really great point there. Is if you think about the past, there's so many movies within that, especially now that we've kind of pulled the curtain back. I mean, you look at the movie about the Von Erichs and it's like Iron Claw. I mean, the curtain is very pulled back.
Yeah.
In that one. And I think back on when WWE Films was a thing, right? You had See No Evil with Kane, and you had The Marine with, what was it, Miz? At one point,
Cena at the start. I think even Randy Orton had a go at one point.
It was Ted DiBiase Jr.
No, the irony of Orton getting cast in the Marine post going AWOL as an actual Marine is not lost upon anyone, I hope. That is one of the wildest things in the history of Hollywood, right? It's like, oh, you got kicked out of the Marines. You should play one. But like at the end of the day, I've never understood why the WWE doesn't use their own stories in film form. And that is a tantalizing prospect. The idea that you take the screw job, we talked pre-show a little bit about, you want to talk about a biopic? How about like a Shawn Michaels biopic? I mean, what a story that is. 4 years away from the business, the drug issues, all of that. How about Triple H, the rise to being on the board of directors for a multi-billion-dollar corporation. I just bit my own tongue. That's
Rey
about why.
Mysterio would be 100%.
I will say this. I fully support all these biopics, and I think they'll be grand. The only main problem I have, if it's produced by WWE, they're going to control the narrative and make it the way that it looks the best of the company. Whether it's, if they do a biopic on CM Punk, I doubt they would bring up the whole lawsuit or UFC failing or AEW run. If it was something like, you know, the many people that have left and then came back or had problems. That's my only thing. If
I agree. But
I want, if it's going to be a biopic, you tell the truth. You don't shoot.
I think I was about to say, I think, but my counterpoint to that is, I think biopics in general do sugarcoat. And as somebody who maybe wasn't the biggest Queen fan in the world, but kind of knew of Freddie Mercury, loved that film. A diehard Freddie Mercury Queen fan might have been like, that was all wrong. It was just written in the way to make Freddie look the best. And like, yeah, they would. Yeah, they 100% would. They'll make that. They'd make films in the way to make WWE look the best. And it's hard to do the screw job and make WWE look the best. It's like, you know, there's times in history where WWE were in the wrong. And unless they're going to pin it on, you know, the big villain, which they might, because they kind of did in the Netflix doc, when all the good stuff is still going on, big bad man gone away, so watch our product, you know. So it's like, they probably continue to do that if they have to tell the negative side of the story. But yeah, good point. So, very good point.
Only one more thing I have to add. Like, I was thinking about it too, once you put it in that context, the idea, another one that would be great, the night of Taker and Mankind Hell in a Cell. You tell that story from almost a backstage cinematic perspective. I think you can still make WWE look good. There are a few storylines.
Oh my god,
that's the only
Terry Funk biopic. They're the ones that I want to see. Yeah. Like, they're the ones that are like really truly inspirational to people that are going to be like, wow, that will put what these incredible people did into the mainstream, into the bigger picture, so more people will appreciate what they did and the role that they played.
If I had to immediately say 3 names on top of my head, I want a wrestling biopic. The first one is Mitsuharu Misawa, the guy who led All Japan and then formed Pro Wrestling Noah. That's one I would immediately want. Even Eddie Guerrero was a biopic. I know a lot of people have wanted that.
Oh, come on. Yeah.
And a final one might kind of surprise people, but I would generally think this would be a very entertaining biopic, is one on Tommaso Ciampa.
Oh, that's interesting. One more name I'll throw in before we actually do have to finally move on, just because we're up against time. Chris Candido. If you haven't researched Chris Candido's story, that'd be a heck of a movie.
Sammy as well. Sammy's a great shout.
Sammy's a good one too. If Brilliant. We're talking more currently, I was thinking way more historically there, but I do hear you. Sammy right there. Yes. We got awesome comments here. That's a golden idea. You still got it, Chance. We gotta love that. Thank you. I appreciate that. But let's talk really quickly about, speaking of still got it. If you haven't checked out Demand Progress Plus yet, please do, because Progress still has it. They're back better than ever, and they never really left. This is one of the best tape libraries on the internet, and we all know you're wrestling fans if you're watching us right now. So use this code to get a discount. Watch Progress 1, 50% off your first month on Demand Progress Plus, the home of Progress Defy and many more promotions. Some of your favorite wrestlers of all time cut their teeth here. It's excellent. Trust us on this one. And then one more for you. Go over to the Google Play Store or just the App Store if you're over on the Apple side. Download the Itsy app. I keep messing that one up. Download the Itsy app. You're going to want to head to the upcoming streams section. We have all kinds of good stuff going on over there. It's a new platform. It's awesome. And the best part about it is if you join, you make your profile, and you join one of the streams, you might have the chance to jump on and argue with one of us, which makes it even more fun. So if you want to tell me I'm all wrong about Cody Rhodes, or you want to tell Ben he doesn't know what he's talking about on Allison Analysis, or many other things, feel free to join, check it out, get in there, and tell us what you think is up. But do remember, if it's me that you want to argue with, pack a lunch. It's going to be a long day, my friends. Let's talk about Action Bronson, though, which I didn't really anticipate talking about today, Soul, but I'm stoked to talk about him because I do think the Hookster has some of the best entrance music in all of AEW. And I was excited to see Action Bronson's presence at a few shows I was at and whatnot. But this felt a little, as the kids are saying, out of pocket, at least in my eyes. I don't know exactly what that means, but I think it means what I'm trying to say. And that is that why? What's the point? He's not a wrestler. What did he think he was going to end up being in the mid-card title picture at some point or something? I don't get it. What was Action's? Why punch that direction? Can you explain, Soul, what the thought process here was for Action Bronson to whine about and then give supposed insight about the locker room after 2 appearances and 1 entrance song?
Let me tell you a little story, right? This is a... Oh, hang on.
Sorry.
There, oh, you cheeky guy.
No.
This is a WR exclusive from my personal experience, right? I work for a wrestling company here in Scotland. It's a great company, Bleeding Gums Wrestling. We've got a show in April at the Church in Dundee. That's the plug. I've done it. And when I first worked for the company, the first show, I didn't go in the locker room, right? I was there as an interviewer. I told the owner what he wanted me to do. We said this and this and this. And it was also the first time I met him in person. I just basically stood behind the entrance ramp, got guys after, did promos. I didn't even set foot in the locker room. I wasn't allowed to, or I didn't even feel like going inside the locker room until it was the 3rd show we did. And one of the guys said, "Oh, can you come in here? Come in here while we chat and all that." Went into the locker room. Everyone was really cool and all that. Just chatted and all that. It was fine, right? I've heard stories of podcasters, they do interviews with wrestling promoters or talent, and then they're asking to come to shows for free or get to go backstage and do all this and that because they want to be a part of the experience. Even some podcasters have gone in and say, I want to go and take a bump for you or something like that. And I was like, well, no, that's not how this works. You can't do it like that, right? For Action Bronson, bear in mind, the time he appeared in AEW was 4 weeks after Brawlout, right? So I can imagine the locker room scene behind there was a bit hush, tight situation, right? The fact that he's gone there and everybody's cliquish, everybody likes to keep to themselves, that's every workplace, mate. Have you never been to a workplace where maybe the old experienced staff and the young rookies or the new starts have their own little cliques that they like to talk to? That's every workplace. And it clearly must have not upset him enough because his music's still used for Hook, so he's still happy to take the paycheck. It's clearly he just wants to get involved again and do things again. And that's what he wants to do. That's cool. He's got a passion for it. But going out on a public platform to try and get attention and say, oh, they're all very clickers and don't like to talk to people. I was like, it's their business. You're an outsider coming into their profession where all these people have trained to get into that role and do it for a living. You're kind of an outsider. Yeah, people might not view you the same way until you eventually go in there, you make your dues, you build a rapport, you build a relationship, and then you can be accepted. Do I want Action Bronson in the ring? Hell no. I don't give a crap what he does. He's all right. I know him from Hook. I know him from the Chairman's Lament for Hook's Feed,
yes.
right?
You know who he reminds me of in this situation in particular? Because I'm actually an Action Bronson fan as far as I like his cooking shows, I like his food shows, I like his music.
I don't know.
Does anybody here watch The Peanuts? Charlie Brown?
Charlie Brown, yeah.
You know the teacher? Wah, 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 wah,
yeah.
wah. That's what this interview was. Wah, 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 wah.
At the end of the day, his music's still used for Hook, so he must have not been hurt that much by it. He's still happy to take the paycheck for it. So there are people that are running this AW is such a bad shop. Everybody's all clickers. Ooh, that's why everyone wants to leave. Ooh, that's why you don't piss off. So sick of this shit.
You know what it felt like to me, too, Soul, is that he read a bunch of tweets about the current state of the AEW and was like, "Ooh, they didn't call me back. I'm gonna make myself look good." Right? That's
More
what
than
this
likely.
came across as to me.
Yeah.
He was like, "You know what? I never had that second chance, and it looks bad on the internet because I followed all these accounts when they did pay me to show up, and when I showed up and they put me over like I was some kind of wrestler." mean, the guy's in the heavyweight division in the UFC video game. Who in the world do you think you are? Like, you're just a short dude from New York, and that's all good. And I really like your music, and I really like your content. But you're not a pro wrestler. You're not an MMA fighter. You're not any of those things. So the idea that you're going to like punch sideways at AEW because you're bitter that they didn't bring you back for another full concert halftime show in the middle of a random card, like, knock it off.
I think as well, like, from personal experience, I've worked for Scottish companies and been replaced by other interviewers. Am I salty? No. It's what the booker of the promotion wants. They didn't want me. They wanted somebody else. I move on. I go and find work everywhere else. I find other places that want me and the talents that I can provide. I like, some people will not want you. Some people will not want you in your company for whatever reasons. And
the thing is as well, the same. I look at it the same way. Has anyone ever worked in a restaurant? Like,
yeah.
Yes.
Can you imagine how long it takes you, as, for example, waiting on staff to be asked into the kitchen? And when you're in there, not the most pleasant, you're an outsider, you know, like, and wrestling is a very, I know the curtain is massively pulled back, massively compared, but especially not long after Brawl Out, you're going to have your wits about you. If you've got a newcomer coming in at that point, I wouldn't have spoke to him. And like, I consider myself a pretty friendly guy, but I would just be like, listen, I will end up saying the wrong thing, and I don't trust this guy enough to say the wrong thing to him. I'm going to say the wrong thing to you, Saul, because I can trust that you're not going to go and say it to somebody else.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's just, if people were being standoffish, he's kind of proved why by going and, you know, like.
What's also so weird to me about it is, like, look at it this way. Like, he's not a wrestler. The way he spoke in the interview where the quote happened, he spoke as a wrestler. He isn't. People took bumps for him. Shots at it right here. Action Bronson's just mad that Rick Ross had a bigger impact in AEW than him. I agree he did. The Rick Ross rub is huge. If you're a hip hop fan, and I'm a hip hop head, right? And I understand that, Soul, you're not like a big hip hop head, and I know, but Rick Ross's name compared to Action Bronson's name is not close.
I know. Yeah, I know who Rick Ross is. I don't know who Action Bronson is.
Close.
Rick Ross was able to be a meme with Keith Lee in 2 segments.
Yeah, and it's funny because I actually thought Action did a good job. He got in the ring. I like the clothesline. I like what they did. It was cool. But at the end of the day, like, did he think he was now suddenly a long-term AEW talent? That's what it sounds like in the quote. Did he believe that entitled him to be like a regular performer? Like his one spot that he got hired to do, that a wrestler who's trained his entire life took a bump for and sold for? Like he thought that entitled him to really have an opinion on the locker room and the future of the company. Like, seriously. And I'm a fan of Action. So, like, if he ever sees this, trust me, F that's delicious. I'm a diehard, long-time fan. But he's not, just like I'm not a pro wrestler, he's not a pro wrestler. And it bothered me in that way. Let's get into the weekend preview. Speaking of things that didn't bother me, usually on this show, I love to blame a certain Canadian, and his name's Kobe Galanzowski. This time, I have to give this little punk credit. He came through in the clutch, just like Stevie Wonder said, for once in my life. Let me get this weekend preview started with the SmackDown card. Let's talk about Solo Sikoa's return to SmackDown. We've also got Motor City Machine Guns versus Los Garza. We've got Tiffany defending against Bayley, and we've got Nia Jax, Candice LeRae, Bianca, and Naomi in a fatal 4-way. Talk to me about SmackDown tonight, Jordy.
I think it's a tag team match. I think it's Nia and Candice. Yeah, against. But I don't know if I don't know if it's for the title or not. No, it's all right. It's all good. It's all good. I'm excited for SmackDown, mainly probably for Solo. Like, I want to see where we go now. Obviously, we saw the rest of the Bloodline last week. They were out and about, kicking people in the face, and, you know, they're doing their thing. And I'm enjoying the potential of a Jacob Fatu versus LA Knight feud. I like that. That speaks to me. Jacob on the mic last week was probably the best we've seen him. Like, he was throwing down bars. He was battle rapping essentially. Like, it was unbelievable. I want to see more of it, and I know LA Knight can throw down on the mic. Put them in the ring together. Let's see what they've got, because two people who right now could be in the mid card division, probably the two people who could maybe be in that main title picture somewhere down the line. So I think a feud could very heavily benefit both of them too.
No, I think I'm muted.
Curse of the mute button.
No doubt about it. I think no
Excited
doubt
to see
it.
Chelsea Green as well. Always.
How could you not be? I am with you on that. Chelsea Green, U.S. Women's Championship run thus far. Jordy, I'm not saying you called it, but you called it. Let's talk about this, though, Soul. It's GCW, and I know you've been chomping at the bit to get into it. You've been Tommaso chomping at the bit, some would say.
Nice.
But we've got a lot of matches here. There's TNA Genesis. I could break that down, but there's also all these GCW matches, and there's certain ones you want to talk about. I know you can see them as well as me. I'm not going to run through all of them. That would just bother people. Start with the one you're most excited about and let me know what you want to see.
The main thing I'm interested to see is obviously who Cardona's mystery opponent is. But let me talk about this show in general, right? Back when I really got into GCW was obviously when Cardona debuted for the company, and I was excited. I actually bought a lot of the GCW shows leading up to obviously their Hammerstein event, which was the World on GCW. I'm very excited for the show. I thought, this is going to be a pretty good promotion. I'm interested to see what happened there. And they absolutely folded with the World on GCW. It's a terrible show, and they know it's a terrible show, with matches being cut, GCW talent not being put over properly, being beat by the likes of Ruby Soho and Jeff Jarrett. And obviously GCW was predominantly a deathmatch company. You can't do death matches in New York because of the commission laws. You can only use tables and chairs and doors and stuff like that. So their whole essence is lost because they can't do it in New York. The fact that they're running it again, people were like, all right, this is okay. You're accepting the faults of the previous show and you're going again. Now, I can't deny, it's been popular. They've sold out and opened up more of the seatings for it. That's great there. But my main problem is when I look at the card and it's 12 goddamn matches, the same problem we had last year, or not last year, the last show. Too many matches, too many things getting too much time. When I look at this and I see 12 matches from a steel cage to a blood sport match, you're going to have to put the steel cage up. You're going to have to take all the ropes down for the blood sport match. You've got an extreme title, ultra-violent title unification, which feels like it should be a big deal, but it doesn't because one of the belts is vacant. So you're basically going in there hoping to win 2 belts, but one of them's going to go away. Like, okay. You then have a number 1 contendership as your co-main event to immediately go into a title match. So you then have to really build what the contendership match is to then have hype going into the title match. Yes, of course, it's Effie versus Ali Catch. They're a tag team together. They have a long-standing history, so there's something there. But when I look at this, my main worry is this is going to get messy and it is not going to get given the time that it needs. And the fact as well, there's people advertised for this show that have not been announced on matches, like Brooke Havoc. So there's more to come. Like, what else is there to come? Are we going to have a battle royale? We're going to have, more 6-man. Like, there's too much on this card. And when I look at that it's going to end up folding in on itself. And when GCW is building this show as we messed up, we know that you're all putting us on trial, and they're going to end up folding in the witness box like a deep fried Mars bar. You've done it again to yourself. Why would I be invested in GCW content when I have the fear that you're going to screw me out of your money like the last show? Like, here's the thing. This show, I'm not like I use Triller Plus, so I'm not paying for the show directly. It's a part of my Triller Plus subscription. That's why I'm going to watch it. If it wasn't part of my Triller subscription, I wasn't going to touch it, right? But my main concern is they burned us once with the Hammerstein show. If they burn us again, why is anyone going to care about GCW, right? And
this
that's the main concern there. And I've spoken to people in the deathmatch community, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm obviously a part of it. I interview a lot of talent and I work for it.
Right.
GCW has strayed away from its original identity of the deathmatch tournaments, the deathmatch style. Like, it feels like to me, besides obviously the tournaments of death they use, like, do they still have the identity of the American deathmatch scene?
That's where it's interesting. I don't think they do as much, but I will say the one match on the card that does stand out to me is of course Corbin against Barnett, because I look at it like this. Josh Barnett was a guy that could throw hands in the UFC, and Bloodsport is a different animal than normal pro wrestling. Baron Corbin was a Golden Gloves boxer.
Mhm.
And I want to see how they incorporate that into the Bloodsport match. That's the one I'm looking forward to most. But to your point, it isn't what necessarily the deathmatch flagship program would generally send you. And I do think there is definitely something to that. So we are pressed for time, though. So I do want to talk about TNA really quick and get Jordy's opinion on that one before we head out of here. But I really think you're more than just on to something when it comes to that. So let's though quickly talk about TNA, because we've got the TNA Genesis big show, Nick Nemeth and Joe Hendry, gigantic match, Moose Ace Austin, Hardy's Rascals. One that I'm really looking forward to though is Josh Alexander, that is, against Mike Santana in an I Quit match. I did not expect Mike Santana to prove to me that he is an absolute single star coming out of an awkward breakup of Proud and Powerful, because that is one of my favorite tag teams I've ever seen. Man, has he shown me something in this TNA run, and I can't wait to see what he does with it. But when it comes to these matches, we also have Jordan Grace as well against Tessa Blanchard, which is off the charts. I mean, that's a put it on the marquee match. But what are you looking forward to most yourself here, Jordy?
To be honest, it doesn't happen that often, so record it, note it down. Obviously, I'm actually agreeing with Shadia. I know we were talking about having Nick Nemeth come out with a belt and stuff like that at the Rumble potentially, but I know that there's a lot of people that kind of saw last time Joe Hendry had a title opportunity as a missed opportunity. So I think it has to be. I think you've got to make it a big deal and give Joe Hendry that belt. But I mean, like I said earlier, I'm always a fan of watching the Hardys. And with Jordan Grace, she, I think, will be in the Rumble. So yeah, I don't know the outcome of that one either. It's a great card for sure. And I think it could be, if this goes as well as it could potentially, could be a very good night for TNA going forward.
It is also fascinating to me thinking about this. TNA puts on this Genesis card here, and then GCW also is trying to go a little all hands on deck right before we go home here, not to make a very broad point that could extend the show for another hour, which we can't do. But like, AEW and WWE have kind of declined to use mid-January as a gigantic marker, right? There's not a flagship show until the Rumble. There's not a flagship pay-per-view on AEW side either. And it's interesting that this weekend is as stacked as it is, right? I mean, I had a hard time doing the ad read given we were up against, not the ad read, given the read on the matches, the match card read. Mm-hmm. Given that we were up against time, I'm like, we got to talk about the important ones and get out of here. And thankfully we have like one more minute here, but sincerely, it is a stacked weekend. And I do find it fascinating that there's space available. There's space available in January. And that's why you would stack a weekend like that. I think it's important to note. But with that does bring us to the end of the show. Thank you so much, everybody that tuned in. We really appreciate it. On behalf of me, Clark Taylor, Soul, Jordy, everybody at WR, thank you so much. If you haven't liked and subscribed, please do. Same time, same place tomorrow. That's noon Pacific. That's, of course, 3 o'clock in the East, and that's 8 p.m. in the UK, and then 9 a.m. for my friends in Hawaii. Have an excellent Friday, and we will talk to y'all soon.